Gaps Weekly Leadership Call. My name is Richard Godfrey. I am the CEO of 3 Gaps. The purpose of this call is to acquaint you with who we are and what we do. Let's start with who we are. 3 Gaps was founded by the same group that founded Franklin Covey. Nearly 35 years later, we have decided to start this new venture whose primary focus is on what we think is the, if not one of the, biggest challenge to organizations today, and that is the challenge of understanding how to put culture to work in the organization, whether that organization is a company, a team, a region, or even a community, a family, or a couple. The same principles apply. Let's start with a definition. We believe that culture is the art of engaging people, and that an organization's success is a direct function of how successful it is at engaging people at all levels throughout the organization. When people are engaged in an organization, they are more productive, meaning they do more of quality and of value. They are more involved, meaning they show up for work ready, willing, and wanting to work, and they are more loyal, meaning they want to stay and they want to invite others to join this organization that is so engaging for them. Research done about 11 years ago at Harvard University explored the connection between how engaged people are and how happy people are. And you see a diagram from Sean Acor's book, The Happiness Advantage, which shows this connection, which is obviously a chicken and egg circle. The question becomes, what comes first? If our people are happy, they're more engaged. So should we focus on helping our people be more happy? Or if they are more engaged, then they are happier and tend to contribute better and stay more loyal. Whether you start with engaged or happy, one of the big questions we believe, which is not answered in the Harvard research, is what starts and maintains the cycle? That's why we've put a question mark in the middle of that circle. What gets people engaged? What makes people happy? Most people believe that what starts that cycle is some form of motivation. As you can see from the slide here, motivation is the traditional way to engage people in any type of organization at any level. There are at least 4 types of motivation that you will see commonly and regularly used in any organization, and you see them listed here. Positive, negative, social, and logical. Positive and negative are obvious. Let me make a brief comment about social and logical. Social motivation is the attempt to use belonging as a way to motivate people. In essence, social motivation can either be used positively or negatively, meaning if you engage, then you can be part of our organization, our team, the inside crowd, etc. If you fail to engage, we won't let you in. Logical motivation is the use of argument or proof. It is basically the presenting of data with the belief that confronted with sufficient data, a person will be motivated to engage with whatever we are attempting to prove or support with the data. All types of motivation have at least 2 weaknesses. The first weakness is sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, meaning what motivates one person has little or no effect on another. Any person who has parented at least 2 children knows how different in their personalities they are, and as such, how different they have to be motivated. The second challenge with motivation is even when it does work, it doesn't have lasting effect. Take something as simple as a raise. A raise would likely be configured as a form of positive motivation, and it will almost always increase engagement. The trouble with that raise is you can't keep going back to it year after year after year. It sounds comical, but imagine somebody thinking that one raise would be sufficient for a person's entire career, and so 2 or 3 years after giving the raise, while in a performance review, we say to this person, well, I don't know why you're not as engaged as you were 2 years ago, After all, we're still paying you that raise. It's laughable because, of course, we need to continually feed the motivation beast. This is why we believe that motivation is not the key to the engagement cycle between engagement and happiness. We believe that the secret to the center of that cycle, to getting people to engage and be happier with what they are doing, is to put meaning at the center. Meaning is a form of engagement and a way to motivate people. It is different than the other 4 forms of motivation. It has at least these 2 powerful advantages. It works for everyone, meaning if I can find a way to show you that what we are doing, what we are producing, what we are promoting has meaning for the marketplace, for us, but most importantly for you, then things like reward, punishment, social and logical argument become helpful but not necessary. Meaning is often sufficient to engage a person. The second key to meaning is it has lasting effect. When I find and I am able to contribute to and be part of something that has meaning, especially to me, then I want to be there. I want to contribute. I want to stay, and I want to invite others. In other words, I'm maximally engaged. We believe that there are a lot of ways to look at what meaning might be, but we, after over 3.5 decades, believe that it is fundamentally a product of shared values, shared beliefs, and goals. In other words, when I am doing something that is consistent and contributory to my values, supportive of my beliefs, and helpful in achieving my goals, I find meaning in what I'm doing. Where what I value, believe, and have as goals are at least to some degree overlapped with what you as another individual, group, or organization have as values, beliefs, and goals, then we are both engaged in shared meaning. We believe then that of all the ways you can get the engagement and happiness cycle going, that a culture based in meaning rather than simple motivation is going to have the competitive and strategic advantage. Now, if meaning is how people engage, then gaps in shared meaning prompt or promote disengagement and unhappiness. The reason we have called our company 3 Gaps is we have identified the 3 primary gaps in shared meaning that are interfering with engagement and making people unhappy at work. Closing those gaps will replace disengagement with engagement and unhappiness with happiness at work, in a marriage, in a family, in a community. A gap, as we use the term, is the difference between what I am doing and things that have meaning. Remember that meaning is shared values, goals, and beliefs. So if I am engaged in a very busy, very frantic day where I am doing a lot of things, but I have at either a conscious or at a subconscious level the feeling that those things are not advancing my goals, then that person would have what we would describe as a time or a goal gap. In other words, they are feeling disengaged and unhappy about how the day is unfolding because it is not bringing them closer to their goals. The key to building meaning-based organizations is to have a full meaning conversation. We believe that over the last 20 years, most organizations have been very effective in doing 1/2 of the meaning or engagement conversation through what we call the plaque or the plaque on the wall. The plaque on the wall is a way of representing the organization's mission, vision, values, principles, etc. Those mission, vision, values plaques often collect the organization's values, beliefs, and goals in a single place. and organizations have spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and have had some success in showing that sharing their side of the meaning conversation, in other words, what the organization values, what the organization believes, and what its goals are, can have effect on engagement and on creating a meaning-based environment. The challenge is when we are only telling our people our side of the meaning conversation, we are talking at them, which is not nearly engaging as talking with them. In other words, to summarize, plaques, which are a way of capturing the organization's mission, vision, values, goals, and beliefs, talk at people, whereas maximally engaging cultures talk with people. How does that happen? What is the distinguishing difference? It is the engagement of the individual by preparing her and allowing her to be able to share her values, beliefs, and goals in the context of the organization's values, beliefs, and goals, and talk about shared meaning. In other words, where do our values overlap? Where do we have shared beliefs? Where do we have common goals? Because it is in the shared values, beliefs, and goals that the individual engages with the organization and the organization engages with the individual. Our training and tools prepare individuals and organizations for the conversation. Using a one-day workshop, we help individuals with 3 very simple tools identify, for many of them for the very first time, what they value, what they believe, and what their goals are. This then creates an environment where they can look anew with very fresh eyes at that plaque on the wall at the organization's values, beliefs, and goals and say, where are the shared elements? In other words, where is the overlap? In that moment where they see shared values, beliefs, and goals, they see meaning. They see a reason to be at work, to make an effort while they're there, to stay and invite other top performers to join. We call this understanding of the individual values, beliefs, and goals, the me before we approach to creating the culture conversation. As I said before, in the first engagement with 3 gaps, the individual learns how to identify her values, beliefs, and goals, how to identify where she has performance gaps, in other words, where the things she's doing on a daily basis are not consistent with those values and beliefs and are not advancing those goals, and we give her the tools to be able to close those gaps at an individual level. We call this the first engagement. The second engagement is having done that work, looked at her values, beliefs, and goals, seen some gaps, and made a commitment to write and execute some action plans around those. She is prepared now to say, what role do I play in this organization? In other words, where are the shared values, beliefs, and goals, and how can I help close our gaps as much as I'm helping close mine? That's 3 gaps, a very simple approach to turning the idea of culture into a very simple and powerful reality by creating a culture conversation where we talk with our people about shared meaning rather than at our people by simply posting and reinforcing the plaque on the wall. We welcome the opportunity to speak with you, to be able to share with you our experience after 3.5 decades and our belief about how your organization can become a powerful, engaging, and motivating experience for your people where they will want to come to work, be fully engaged at work, stay, and invite others to join them. Thank you for your time.